Nerd on the Podcast is proudly partnered with Apogee Electronics and Odyssey Headphones, leaders in the field of audio.
And then my amendment to that is, I'm Batman.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nerd on the Podcast you didn't need but you deserve, and where all levels of nerd are welcome. Now, in lieu of the commonplace sobriquet, we are doing something a little different to announce this dramatic episode. Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillian veteran, cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified and has vowed to vanquish this venal and virulent vermin vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition. The only verdict is vengeance, a vendetta held as a votive, now in vain, for the value and veracity of such shall one day vindicate the vigilant and the virtuous. Verily, this vigesoir of verbiage veers most verbose, so let me simply add, it's my very good honor to meet you. And you may call me Josh. I'm Josh, one of the hosts.
Just killed it.
Wow.
I'm Ollie. If you have not guessed, we are doing the 2005 movie V for Vendetta. Because today, this episode is coming out on November 5th.
Remember.
What? Remember what?
The 5th of November.
5th of November.
Oh, yeah, that's today.
You'll get powder, treason, and plot.
Should never be forgot.
So,
yes,
let us introduce the host.
Ollie Reed jumped on it, so I'll go next. My name is Tom.
I'm Caitlin.
And this episode is brought to you in part by the members of the Nerd On Nation that is powered by Patreon. As a member of the Nerd On Nation, you do get fun perks, like you get early access to these episodes. You get bonus episodes that nobody else hears. You get access to secret channels on our Discord server. You get the Nerd On Nudge for the Nerd On Update to get your questions answered first. All sorts of really fun perks to check out. So, check out that Nerd On Nation, nerdon.tv/Patreon, and check out that Discord, nerdon.tv/Discord. And a huge shout out to our partners, Apogee Electronics and Odyssey Headphones. Apogee makes all sorts of really great products, but specifically this Hype Mic, the ultimate podcasting microphone. It's a great microphone, not just for podcasting. All of us use it for streaming, any sort of video content that we're creating.
Everything I use it for.
Yeah, and it also attaches to your iPhone if you need to do something like that. So that's pretty cool.
For self-tape auditions.
So yeah, check them out, and then check out Odyssey Headphones. We are using their LCD ones. Fantastic headphones. They sound nice. They're pretty. And as they have officially recognized, if your ears were mouths, they taste like butter.
Oh my God. I love that they actually posted it on their social media feed. It's now canon.
It is canon. It is. But yeah, that is the housekeeping. Shall we get into the episode?
I'm going to also, real quick, when Josh fucking put dibs on doing the opening, I thought you were going to go.
I thought you were gonna go real ham.
Yeah, and then I was
it's already ham trying to do it.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because so I was practicing doing it because Ali was like, "Tom, you're doing it." I'm like, "All right," and then I started. I watched the thing and I practiced it the way V did it.
Yeah.
And I was gonna go fucking ham, and then so when I heard Josh do it, I was just like, you know what? This is Josh's V for Vendetta, right? It's like you
if
can't
he
have
was in
all
the dark
Christian
alleyway,
Bale
he'd be like, "It's me."
So I didn't do it good enough.
No,
you
Josh,
did it in the Josh way.
Well,
it's
I wanted to get
deliveries.
I wanted to get all of us Guy Fawkes masks. I was going to do this whole thing where I was going to imitate the movie and send you guys a blind package with the Guy Fawkes, and then just trust that we would all be sitting here in the outfits. But
oh my God!
It didn't come to.
And then
we didn't plan it far back enough.
A detective comes in and says, "How many boxes?" And he's like, 800,000. It's like, my God.
Oh my God.
But no, and so it just made me think of just kind of like if there was like a reboot of V for Vendetta and they cast Josh as V, it's like, voila, in view a humble. It's so
So
sweet,
sweet,
going
but
on here,
also
man?
so murderous.
I'm your revolutionary.
Let's get this show on the way.
I'm on your team. This guy can keep us cool.
The next two segments of our show are going to be, the first part is going to be where we're going to go around the digital green room, because at the end of this episode, we are going to rate it from 0 to 5. So this is a little bit of a fun tradition that we do. We are going to
Guess that grub.
So if you're brand new to that, then welcome. You are now officially christened to a Nerd episode.
Yeah, it always
What do you
gets a
think of our
little
song?
mushy during that Guess That Grub song.
We're still
Yeah,
waiting
We
for
never made one official.
We're still waiting for any of you amazing fans to send us something for the interstitials. But
They're like-
until then, this is going to be our instruments.
We're going to get like an Animal Crossing theme song from
No,
someone.
God,
They're going to be like,
take
use
it.
this.
Anyway, so this part of the show is going to be where we're going to go around the digital screens and pick who is going to have the lowest score from 0 to 5. No matter how high the number is, the lowest one will be the grump for the week. It's how we make light of us, destroying and objectifying a film. I love doing it. Since I always explain and I apologize for the show, I'm going to go first. And I'm going to say that the person with the lowest score is going to be Caitlin.
Okay. I think
Next.
it's going to be Tom.
Okay. One vote.
I saw his face slightly contort when I said that. He was like,
That's just how my face looks. Thank you,
no,
Caitlin, for
I saw
bringing
it.
that
I
up.
saw it.
If everyone on the YouTube, please, put the time code when my face contorted.
And I won't be having any tells today.
This is the official marking post for face contortion.
All right, Josh or Ollie, who's next?
I will vote for Caitlin.
Okay.
2 on Caitlin.
I'm going to vote Josh.
Oh, 1 for Josh, 1 for Tom, none for Ollie from us, the host. But like Josh mentioned, if you're part of the Nerd On Nation, then you get to be part of this polling system where we could guess that grump with y'all, and y'all could put it in typically a little bit before the episode starts recording. So the votes from the Nerd On Nation, as it currently, let me refresh real quick so we get that sweet freshness straight off the truck. That didn't change. So we have a 3-way tie.
What?
Between Ollie, Josh, and Tom.
Wow.
That's
How many
one
votes each by
vote for
chance?
Josh. That puts it to 2. That's 1 vote for Tom. That puts him at 2. And that's 1 vote for Ollie. That puts him at 1. So Ollie, you will give out your rating first.
Okay.
Then it's a 3-way death battle between Caitlin, Josh, and I. And I'm going to vote for reverse order. So alphabetical order. Last name,
Okay.
reverse alphabetical order. No one does.
Jesus, make me do all this work.
Do all this work?
It's
Do you
me,
not
Caitlin,
know
and
the
Josh.
Ollie.
So there you have it. Those are the guesses in the queue, and you do get a shout out at the very end of the episode if you are right. So we'll go to our complete spoiler of that, which is going to be our first impressions and our initial reactions.
Yeah.
I'm going to go first again. So, watching the film V for Vendetta, I think the real big allure for me to watch this in theaters, I think I watched it in theaters. I can't remember. Yeah, I think I watched it in theaters because I have the DVD and I'm just like, I know for a fact I watched the crap out of this DVD because I love this film.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was because it was just the Wachowskis, and, so they had just come off of doing all the Matrix films, and everyone, it was just interesting. And it was, you saw the DC Vertigo logo, and I was like, oh, another comic book movie, right? And so this is like, Batman Begins and Spider-Man and X-Men. There was no MCU yet at this point. And so it was like really kind of like, oh, these are like nice little things, like I think Ghost Rider and Daredevil had already made the things. The Hulk had made a film. So it was like comic book movies weren't like these like monster films, blockbusters in the theater. They were like these little gems that you would like go like they were the Happy Meal. Like you got the food, but you came for the Happy Meal. You know, like you'd go to the theater like hoping that there would be something for you as like a kid who's in high school that had to like get dropped off by their parents. I really I love this movie. I think like as an adult now rewatching it for this episode, there's a lot more nuance that is illuminated for me. I understand a lot more of what the film is trying to communicate, and understanding where it comes from in the source material and reading the source material. There are the Hollywood liberties that it takes to make it a little bit more digestible for the American audience. So talking about everything in its realm, it's one of my favorite comic book films. And if I could say one, and again, we're all in spoiler-free world. If I could say one thing about the film, if they're above all of the Dark Knight Nolan films, this film, I think, like highlights the ideology of what a symbol means more than everything else. Like there's hardly other superhero films that talk about symbologies.
Yeah.
Symbology from
Symbology.
But this one's like, oh, you know what a symbol is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, after that. So that's me. Who's next?
Very powerful, yeah. I can go. I as well love this movie. I saw it back in theaters as well. It's a little bit older than you, so I wasn't dropped off at the theater. But no, same thing. So I'm a huge fan of Wachowskis, their work, or at least their earlier work, and The Matrix especially, and going into V for Vendetta, going into a property that I didn't necessarily picture them tackling, but kind of bringing kind of that Wachowski magic to it, you know, fresh off the heels of Matrix, in the sense of like, it's dark, it's gritty, it's it has its slow-mo fight sequences, but it's also like doesn't pull its punches. It hits like real topics. It is it's slightly Americanized, but it's still very British. And I love that about it. It has a very distinct identity. It does such a good job of kind of like transporting you into that world, and it really does it really grounds you. I think the most important thing is like the events of the story, without going into them too much. I think they really help ground the movie into a bit more reality, so that when all these fantastic things happen around, they make that much more of an impact.
Keep your hands here, bro.
Sorry.
Everyone, Ollie was just had a boxing match.
I don't know what to do with my hands. What?
No, Ollie's emphatic, and he was.
I'm very emphatic.
He was getting into it, but at the same time, was doing a boxing match with his mic. So, Caitlin or Josh?
Josh?
Yeah. So, is there an echo in here?
Yeah, Caitlin, go ahead.
Copy paste. No.
Wow, the most efficient podcast on the air.
Wow.
Copy paste.
I loved this movie when it came out. Keyword past tense. No, I'm just kidding. No,
I was about to say.
I remember seeing, because I think around 2005, the era of 2005 to 2007, I was just starting to get into comic books. And as I've said before, like I wasn't way into superhero comics, so it was kind of those not off brand, but off
the beaten path.
Off the beaten path comic books like Preacher or V for Vendetta.
I like to just see off.
Yeah. This being based off a comic book, I was like, oh. Mind you, I still haven't read the comic book that is standing behind me, but still, a comic book movie that wasn't like Hulk or Daredevil or Superman or Batman. You know, it was something like that.
Mainstream.
Yeah, mainstream superhero kind of thing. So I walked away loving the movie. It was when I had a physical collection of DVDs. It was one that I bought the special edition of, and I just loved it. And funny enough, preparing for this episode, I realized that I hadn't seen it in years and years and years. To the point that I had forgotten the twist. Like, I was watching it again for this episode, and I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, it's like Tom said, now being older and seeing the movie, you understand different things, and there's also a certain amount of parallel with the current reality of living
Boy, oh
in
boy.
2020. Yeah, that's my initial reaction is that I liked it. I liked the movie.
Oh, taking Caitlin's thing.
Wow.
Nice.
Just ripping it away from me, Josh.
Caitlin,
I just
you
don't
gotta
know what
team
to
it up real quick.
I have no originality. I'm not wearing
is
hockey
that
pads.
it? Oh, okay. All right. Just rip it away from me. No, you're fine. So kind of in the same boat. I saw this a long time ago. I totally forgot the twist. I forgot
Maybe at least 20, maybe at least 15 years ago.
Yeah, but I forgot a lot of things, like a lot of things
Yeah.
about this movie. There's
a lot going on.
There's so many elements. I barely remember any of the plot points. I actually had this confused with a different movie.
But
As
do you
well.
remember the 5th of November?
Now I do.
Now she does.
But it was as Josh was saying, there's like so many parallels that are happening with this. While I was watching, I was going, no, stop. Stop. You can't stop. It's too real.
Stop being so real.
Everyone
Stop
listening
it.
at home, please tell Caitlin to not watch The Simpsons.
I've seen some, and that's yeah. But there's so much about it that it's hard not to love because they've done so many things so well, and how can you not appreciate it? And they have so many different genres in there as well without meaning to necessarily. But it just taps on like every nostalgia button you got, especially watching it now. Now that all the superhero movies are out, now that we're in the world climate that we're in, now that we're, now that so many things are coming together, I feel like there's a whole new appreciation for this movie that couldn't previously have existed.
Big time. I'll admit,
until now.
I've had some different reactions than previous.
Oh,
watching this again, getting ready
big-
post
Big
quarantine.
same.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is
Mood.
this
big
is
mood.
good. But
Big
ultimately,
mood.
I think it was I really enjoyed it, and it sounds weird to say, but it ultimately feel good because of the journey that gets like fulfilled.
Yeah.
So I actually recommend it if you want to kind of if you're up for it, and if you want to compare it to what's going on now.
I will say that I did have a sort of a strong reaction to the end of it, kind of in a negative, but it doesn't
circle back.
detract from my enjoyment of it, and we'll get to it later.
We'll
on.
get to it. Yeah.
Dope. Well, bring it back up, Caitlin. No, we'll move on to our next two segments of the show, which are going to be our brief synopsis and our production. And that brief synopsis will be read to you by
Me.
say two. It you.
It me. Following World War, London is a police state occupied by a fascist government. And a vigilante known as V, played by Hugo Weaving, uses terrorist tactics to fight the oppressors of the world in which he now lives. When V saves a young woman named Evie, played by Natalie Portman, from the secret police, he discovers an ally in his fight against England's oppressors. Probably didn't need to say the name since we're about to talk about that.
No, not really.
But,
okay, cool. Yeah.
Josh will go deeper into the cast and crew.
Will I?
No, he will not. That's me.
Tom will go
will do
deeper
it.
into the cast and
That
crew.
it me. So this film was distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. That gave us the titans such as Free Willy, Lethal Weapon,
Yes.
and the Ocean series.
It is a large movie. There is a whale in it.
There is a huge whale.
Free Willy.
The director is James McTeigue, who did films such as The Raven, Ninja Assassin, and Sense8, the show. Producer is Joel Silver, The Nice Guys, Romeo Must Die, and Die Hard. Grant Hill, who's done work on The Crow, The Ghost in the Darkness, and The Tree of Life. The writers are, I'm just going to call them the Wachowskis. Because credited, they're not. They're different. different
Names
names.
are different now.
And I'm not an asshole. So the Wachowskis who wrote films. Oh no, sorry. This is the last part of the producers, which is the Wachowskis who produced films such as Speed Racer, Cloud Atlas, and Work in Progress. The writers, the Wachowskis, who wrote films such as The Assassins, The Matrix, and Jupiter Ascending. This is based on the V for Vendetta book by David Lloyd and Alan Moore. Although, if you looked in the credits for the movies, Alan Moore is never to be found. Cast is, we'll talk about that, Kaylin. Cast is, for everyone who can't see Kaylin because she's a digital image, is she gave like a what the hell kind of face. So the cast is Natalie Portman for Black Swan, Leon the Professional, and Jackie. Hugo Weaving, who works in Priscilla, Hacksaw Ridge, and the Matrix trilogy. And Stephen Rea, who's done films in Interview with the Vampire, Citizen X, and The Crying Game. Stephen Fry, who's in films such as Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Wild, and Gosford Park. John Hurt, who's in films such as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, The Elephant Man, and 1984. The release date for this film is a little interesting because there's two dates. It premiered at the Butt Numathon.
What? Hang
on December
Say
11th.
that one more time.
The Butt Numathon.
Okay.
You know, it's how you feel when you leave the El Capitan because their seats are garbage.
Sorry, I just my brain didn't process all the words. I just heard butt and a-thon, and I was like, I need to know what that second word was.
She needs to know what? She's highly interested in a butt-a-thon.
Butt Numathon on December 11th, 2005, and then for worldwide release on March 17th, 2006.
Oh,
The runtime is 132 minutes, and the budget was $54 million, and the gross was $132 million. So, not a huge blockbuster. The Rotten Tomatoes score is 73% from critics, from 249 critics. The audience score is 90% from 904,129 users.
wow.
So they like it.
So
They like the movie.
People like it.
I mean, that's an A.
That is all of the production stuff, the brief synopsis stuff. Now we're in that spoiler full country, that spoiler full UK. Unity through faith and faith through, I don't know, whatever the hell it's called. Anyway, so now we're going to talk about our favorite parts, favorite characters, our qualms, and then we'll finally rate the show. So I'm going to go first real quick. I'm going to say
Tom's all about going first today.
I'm going first this
He
episode.
really
is. He's
like,
usually
I got strong thoughts, all right?
Everyone at home, everyone listening, I know you're listening to this while you're getting ready for the morning. If you take a moment, stop what you're doing, look in the mirror and
or in
say,
the afternoon or at night.
look in the
or while
mirror
they're going to
and
bed.
say,
okay.
Look in the mirror and say, like, you're the star player. Look in the mirror and look at that person.
Look in the mirror and recite that Vicendi, whatever quote.
Yeah.
On the mirror.
But you got to look in the mirror and say, look at that person looking at you back and say, you're the star player. You're the star player. You got to treat yourself, baby. So, for the film, one of my favorite things is the television speech that when he takes over the BTV, and he kind of like tells the people that he blew up the Bailey, and because the reason why I really it hits a lot harder for me is because I remember when the film was coming out, and that was like one of the first viral trailers that they just posted, like, this is a V, announcement from V. And then they just showed the speech uninterrupted, not with the scenes and all that stuff. And if you look on the internet now on YouTube, you can't really find that same spot, which is a little sad. You see the whole scene and you see all the people intermingling. But there is obviously, again, there's a little bit of relevancy with any type of like historical conflict or anxiety. When Alan Moore wrote the book in 1988, it was during Margaret Thatcher's time. And when the film was developed, it was in 2005, like when almost at the peak of the Patriot Act. So no matter what, there's always going to be this relevancy of if you have any type of opposing thoughts of what the government or the social status quo is, that it'll reach home. So I thought that it was just really, really, really cool. And also Hugo Weaving is just, he delivers just lines and lines and lines, and just like, you know what?
Hugo Weaving is
tour de
just
force.
like,
yeah, I'd want him to do like read my will. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Who's next?
I can go next again. My favorite parts. I mean, the knife fights were pretty freaking amazing.
those knife trails.
The knife trails. I cannot get enough knife trails. Like, I want more.
Like special effects of knives going whoosh.
Yeah,
whoosh,
yeah.
Whoosh.
And I counted. I think there's 3 fight scenes in this, and they're all
Amazing.
Especially that final one. I love the last one, obviously. Just like
My turn.
It's the quickness, right? It's not even like, oh, those knives look cool with trails. It's just how fast it happens, and just like those are gonna stab people.
Oh yeah.
Just kinda watching them, and they're taking their time getting across.
I think those are gonna stab someone.
And like even just watching it a couple days ago, getting ready for this, I was just like, when those knives left the hand, I was like, oh my god, mouth agape, just like
Those are gonna stab people.
it still got me. I was
He's
like,
getting
that's
stabby.
cool. Yeah, and then of course it unleashes, and he kind of rips through everybody, and he keeps his word. You know, we're in spoiler territory, right?
Yes.
At this point, very spoiler.
Creed with his hands. I just love the choreography, obviously, and you want to, you're hungry for more of that Matrix combat. Leaving the trilogy, and you get a pretty great treatment here of like V and his weapons.
Even though the film's rated R, it doesn't go like too ham in the goriness of like what's happening. Like there's blood for sure being sprayed, but it's not like Tarantino where it becomes like comically like unrealistic.
But it's effective, like in the in the BTN,
like
when he goes up to that guy
through the armor.
When he stabs that guy and he just reacts to him and then he leaves him, and you hear it, but you don't see it. And I think that is more effective.
Because that's one of my favorite parts too. But one of the things that I like about that so much is that he's riddled with bullets, and he should not be alive. The thing about V for me is it's the power of the mind. It's the power of the word, and he should be dead, but his willpower and his strength keeps him alive to have the last word, so to speak. And so I love that it's kind of like it's showing
he survived.
Yeah, it's showing his whole point of like the power of your mind and your words and
your
that
ideas.
kind of thing.
And that super soldier serum really worked.
It really did, though.
You get shot one time, you won't die. But you get shot maybe about 50 times, you might die.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, you're human.
My favorite, one of my favorite parts is actually the meeting of Evie and V. But specifically, I love the line when he's talking about asking a man in a mask who he is, where he says, "I'm merely remarking upon the paradox of asking a masked man who he is." And then of course the speech and all that kind of stuff. Like Tom said,
the language.
Hugo Weaving just speaking. I'm just like, cool. I'm just going to turn off the visuals for this movie and just listen to him speak.
Yeah, I feel like they wrote it for him. Like there's lines in this that are like I feel like you wrote that for Hugo Weaving.
And to that point, I don't know where you got the speech part, Ollie, but when you called me out to do it, it's longer than the one that's actually in the theatrical.
Is it?
There are some lines I had to take out. Yeah, no, there's some lines I had to take out because I was watching it and I was like trying to memorize it, and I watched the thing, and then
you're like, where did this go?
It had like 3 lines missing from when Hugo Weaving talked about it.
It's a lot, and like
it's a lot.
It's hard to understand too. It's not it's all correct, right?
There's
Obviously,
a lot of $3
it all
words
makes sense
in there.
It's a proper paragraph or whatever, but it's like, how do you convey that? How much do you put on screen before people kind of start to lose interest because if they faded away and aren't really following the language?
And in the book,
I wonder if there was like focus groups or anything like that.
When he meets Evie in the book, that doesn't happen.
What's that?
He just in the book Vendetta, he doesn't do that. He just meets her like, you want to go see this thing? I'm a musician. And then
he doesn't have his intro.
That's what happens. Like, what?
I loved all of the sort of pomp and like kind of a little bit of cheesiness that like he brought to that performance. Like just him being so proper and so verbose and so like swashbuckly and very much, going back to the Count of Monte Cristo, like very much that style. It even gave me strong like Princess Bride vibes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, I have a whole new level of appreciation for this.
And I'll talk a little bit about like the differences between the book and the film. But Caitlin, what's some of your favorite parts?
Man, a part that, and I'm gonna start this in the reverse first, so let me finish.
As in she hates
the part that I hated, but then turned into the part that I loved, was when Evie came out of the fake prison.
Oh, yeah. Torture.
And she comes up to him and she's like, "You tortured me. Like we're so not okay." And then like you're both very not okay with him, but also understand why he did it when he explains. And you can see that the like understanding with Evie is happening too, of like, I know why you did this. I can't really forgive you, but I love you, but also fuck you.
It's almost like more intense version of when she wakes up for the first time at V's place, where she's like, "You should have just left me alone."
Right.
Where it's like, like I appreciate what you've done, but geez, you've like
And it would have been
ended
that
my
again.
entire life.
It would have
Yeah.
been that again if they didn't have that moment of like her getting that like panic attack and then him like holding her and being
Yeah.
like, fight through it. Like
One of my
knowing
favorite
that
lines
he's
is when he
there.
says, like, it's like your things are happening to you. Commit.
This
to
is
and I was
some, yes,
ooh.
like your
That
life is
that
changing
was
or whatever he
honestly
says.
the
Yeah.
part that I enjoyed of like the depth of understanding there. It still doesn't make it okay. It's
Oh.
super not okay. Very unokay.
No.
But the ideology behind it is what intrigued me, which is what made it a favorite part for me.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not fond of
No.
the lead
but I
up
think,
to that point.
I think he knew that he needed a successor in that sense of like somebody that is also without fear of death and like wants
to me, it
like-
was more that he just like he didn't know how else to communicate what he's been through to someone. He didn't know
true.
how
Yeah.
else to communicate. Like for him, who's been through what he's been through, he doesn't have any other tools to communicate his experience to someone who seems to understand him but not fully understand him.
Go ahead.
But it's a very damaged way of approaching something. And to me, that's like
Yeah.
seeing someone who doesn't have like, and he has a moment later where I forget what she says, but she says something that's like
what happens
really,
to me. What happened to me was monstrous, and then she says, so they created a monster.
They created a monster.
and then she leaves.
There was something later. I can't remember what she said, but he actually like hangs his head and backs away. Like, yep, that was me. That I really fucked up there. Sorry. Like,
There
This
are
is before
moments
that
of
moment.
where you do get that sense of like, he even says it, but he
Oh, no,
hates
I know.
everything
I'm
that he's
sorry.
doing. Yeah.
This is after that moment. Yeah, you're talking about this is on the eve of his revolution,
Yeah.
and she's playing
Okay.
the jukebox, and then she says, one of my friends didn't even recognize who I am. I
oh,
guess I
so
have
whatever
you, to
you
thank
did,
for
it
that.
must have worked.
Must have worked, and then he backs off, and it's like, yeah, I fucking
Yeah.
Yeah.
remodeled
Like,
your entire life.
I think it's he both grows but doesn't grow. Like,
He definitely grows.
He
And
grows.
The thing is, so what I tried to said like maybe 2 minutes ago, was like what he said at the very end, like I met you and everything changed. Like his plan was going to happen no matter what. Like it was inevitable, and that's the thing where it's like the idea is unstoppable, and so that's his whole motive. But then meeting somebody that happened to be like EV. I'm like God. I don't play with dice and coincidences, right? So it's like there had to be a reason to do this. And his reason was that like he can possibly feel love once again, at least in this film, right? And the fact that he ended up learning that she had been like, if like he was like physically ravaged by the actions of his government, where Evie almost mentally and like just taken like her family, her brother, and at the moment when we first meet her, she has zero intention of like causing a revolution like he does, and that's the weird like kind of cat and mouse game with the detectives that are like, oh, she's like uber terrorist because she has the MO. And if you think about it, everyone in this country probably has the
And it
same
runs in the
motive.
family, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, they all have like the same reason because they all probably have experienced the same side of of Creedy's fingermen and stuff like that. And so she mentions to him how
Prime
she
candidate.
wishes she can be stronger. And to your point, it is like a fucked up way for him to catalyze growth for this character.
Yeah.
But at the very end, he's like, you wanted to feel strong. You were looking at death and you said no. And you said, I'm not going to give up V and all that stuff. So there's a level of something that like, again, taking away a little bit of like the ego, taking away of like who she thinks she is, and then stripping her down to pretty much what she wants to be. I'm not saying there's any type of glorification or romanticism about it, but
Yeah,
it's like the
fucked up.
metamorphosis
That's
that
just
her
fucked up.
character
Yeah.
needed to do in order for her to be able to come to terms with who she is and her own traumas. And it's that like, it's like V is doing to her what he wants to do with the rest of the country and like tear down all of these symbols that we think are reality. And her symbol of reality has been kind of like what she built up as what Evie was. and then now it's not. It's something completely different. And again, in terms of writing, it's just really intelligent to have hair being cut off, because how do you show character growth? You just make them look different. So it's like, obviously they changed. So like she is a completely brand new person, and she's like firsthand, she, again, like at the beginning of the film, she misses more than just the idea. She misses the man behind the mask. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Other favorite parts, or you want to go on, Kayla?
Something I really enjoy about V is that his face is never revealed, aside from the shadowy Bernie one.
I think with superhero films, anyone that wears their mask more than not, I really appreciate, because superhero films is so glorified of like, I'm blah blah blah, I'm this actor in the suit, and it's the star theory, is that like you stop looking at the character, you start looking at the star.
Right.
Where in here you wouldn't know it's Hugo Weaving unless you were very familiar with his voice.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that the Wachowskis wanted to work with
forces you
him.
to focus on the character and the,
exactly.
the story
you lose.
of it.
Yeah, you don't say, "Oh, that's Hugo Weaving in a mask." You're just like, "That's V. That's V." the entire
I'd
time.
venture, and maybe you can, because you're definitely a lot more read in comics than me. But I feel like at least from what I've read, it seems to be a lot more dual identity dynamics inside DC Comics versus like Marvel. Like Marvel, I feel like identities are in the front, and like Tony Stark.
The dual identity thing kind
Captain
of
America.
like in Marvel melted away only because they just
like Spider-Man has it, but
everyone's just government employed.
yeah.
So there is, to me, that's the thing.
But I feel
Marvel,
like DC really digs into the dual identity like hard. Like I feel like Bruce Wayne.
I mean, so yeah, Spider-Man's probably the biggest one that has any type of dual identity thing.
Yeah.
But like DC definitely does that because they have to talk about psychology more often than not, and that's why like, and not like a hot take, but that's why I say like the Marvel superheroes aren't really superheroes. They're just more like everyone knows who the fuck they are. So there's nothing like secret identity about it. They're just people
Very
now
few personal
funded by the
conflicts.
government. And it's more of like a who's carrying the mantle thing in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's essentially
interesting
everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean,
I love it.
that brings me to one of my favorite parts is also the very end, is that they steer away from like quote unquote realistic logic, and then for the narrative, and then they just abandon that for what the film is trying to talk about in terms of an idea and a symbol, and that's why I think again this film does way more for symbology and symbolism. I like to say symbology than any of the other superhero films do, because Lady Justice, Parliament, all these buildings being destroyed, certain members of the government are being killed off, and so like the voice of London is gone, right? And so it's like, okay, cool. So the media is now gone, and with everyone wearing a mask, like I think back to, with hindsight, I think back to Dark Knight Rises, like Batman's more than a man; he could be anyone. And then he tells Joseph Gordon-Levitt that, right?
It's just
But V for Vendetta, he gives the mask to everybody, so everyone is him, and so like even people who have died are wearing the mask, and we see him at the very end. And I thought that was such like this wonderful moment where it coalesces really well with Evie saying like, he was my mother, he was my father, he was my brother, he was you, he was me, he was all of us.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it gives me, I just got chills. It gives me
very
fucking chills about it.
And the thing is, like, I don't know, maybe you can also inform me if V for Vendetta the comics goes anywhere else besides this core story. No?
The book, so Alan Moore is a book writer, so he's like, I'm telling a story and I want to talk about power.
So I was going to say, it's very it's like if Batman was about, like if the Batman story was about bats, like that would, you know what I mean? Like it in some weird way, or like there was a bat folk hero.
Well, it's like if
from
Nolan,
long ago.
if all we knew of Batman was just what of the Nolan trilogy was, it's like that's the book.
Yeah,
is the
but
Nolan
this is
trilogy.
like, there's Guy Fawkes. This movie's about that and that idea and what that. So it's very much about, the movie's about the mask, and like so that's kind of why it affords the ability to kind of dive in so much.
And the book is a little bit more like, it's about religious fascism, but then like it's about, V is not about like what we as Americans, what we think of what liberty and freedom is. Like he's technically like a liberal in his world,
Right.
where he's like, homosexuality is okay, having butter is okay. having a Quran is okay. Like having protest artwork
But
is
the
okay.
movie's also very different from the comic book, right? In terms of
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Was
I'm
that,
sure
like,
it's got
in the
very
book,
direct
in the
references.
movie it's more just authoritarian fascism. Where in the book it's more about religious fascism. So like the strength through unity through faith is purity through. It's like strength through purity, and so there's a lot more like Nazism in there, and there's a lot more about like ethnic cleansing and ethnic purity in
Wow.
the book. And V is not really like a liberal, like I'm trying to, have us have freedom. He's more about anarchy completely. And so he's like, there's a sense of that in anarchy, like we will self-govern, but then like we shouldn't be bound by any rule at all. And like Lady Liberty's not like, oh, you're on a holiday and I have to kind of like help out. It's more like, well, fuck you. You went to bed with the bad guys, and now everything that freedom and justice stand for don't mean anything. And so it's a little bit more like extreme. And
Yeah.
that's why Alan Moore doesn't have his name on it. And he doesn't have his name on anything that's been created. Like, so Killing Joke, no Alan Moore. Watchmen, no Alan Moore. From Hell, no Alan Moore. Like all the Alan Moore stuff that became visual doesn't have his name on it, because that's who Alan Moore is. He was the anti-establishment. He was like, an anarchist. He was the self-proclaimed magician. And so it's like
Do you feel like I'm just a thought? Do you feel like if you're with, I'm just going to take, because we're talking about V for Vendetta, could it have been like, if you're going to do my story, do my story, don't change it so much that it's not my story anymore, like that kind of thing?
Artist integrity kind of.
I mean, I think so. I mean, a lot of people will say that the Watchmen film is like too close to the source material, but even then he doesn't recognize it as one of his own.
Yeah.
But he read the script. He never watched the film for V for Vendetta, and he said V for Vendetta was a watered down version. It wasn't nuanced enough. And so I mean, in that case, like I feel like he's kind of like, he's not in it for the money.
Yeah.
He's not in it for the claim.
Here to tell a
He's
story.
he's there to tell a
and to
story, which
present
is
an
like
idea.
very, very admirable. But also
Genuine.
in recent years, he's been just like, I hate comic books, I hate superheroes. So it's very interesting. Before we get too far into it, but any other favorite parts?
Another favorite part for me is the story of the actress.
I was going to say,
I just
it's all
find it
flat
to
story.
just be a fascinating and beautiful story, even if it's just a story.
Beautifully like showed and told and stuff too.
Yeah,
like
that's
interweaved.
really just the juxtaposition of what she's going through, to see the beautiful moments in the story and just to see the unfoldment. And I just thought it was just a beautiful story, and just the way that it was told in this movie format of the change of this person's life and all that kind of stuff. Like, I thought it was.
And you see
beautiful.
that, you see
and
that
his memoriam.
And you see that woman who plays that actress, like in other flashbacks, which I really liked.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it
the
see
gives-
her,
salt
like,
flats?
You see her
Yeah.
before you know who she is, and like you
You're
see
like,
her in a
oh,
flashback before.
yeah, you see her like,
she's
oh my
even
God.
introduced.
and I really like, you get that feeling of Evie of like, you're desperate to hear what's next. And I really enjoyed that part. But also, I tell you right now, I get choked up every once in a while when I watch that film and I see that the last line, she's like, "I love you," and I don't even know who you are. And I'm just like, oh, it's because like they did so well of like, and that's one thing about V for Vendetta, like the romantic aspect of the film is really well done.
Super
is.
well done.
It's you feel like a little the
It's not over the
Disney
top.
Princess Bride, like
Yeah.
kind of
Except for the
Cristo a
torture
little bit.
part, but yeah.
But like the there is a romanticism of V, right? Of
Yeah.
like not
Oh, yeah.
knowing him, and you know exactly what she telegraphs, exactly what we feel of like, you're so important, but I don't even know your name, I don't know your parents, I don't know who you are, because you know what, you don't need origin stories for everything. So but
And he
it's,
doesn't remember anyway, because they actually say that he has no idea who he is. From all
he
the
says
tests.
like, yeah, there's more. There's like, what behind his face is not mine and all this stuff too. But yeah, it's unimportant at this point, because he's completely, to like Josh's point, like devoted to the word, the idea. So,
Mhm.
One last thing is it's just a cool visual, and I love the behind the scenes of it is the shadow walking through the flames and knowing that the stunt person actually did walk through flames, like
Oh.
like wearing this cooling gel, like.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not going to go into the
that's
whole
why he's
details
shiny.
because I don't know all the details, except for the guy was wearing cooling gel, and to see some behind the scenes photos of him wearing that stuff, it's just so like there's a lot of really interesting behind the scenes stuff that went into the making of this film that like everybody had to have background checks because they were working so close to Parliament.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
All of the guns that were used like had to be like inventoried and scanned and all that kind of stuff. So
I'd be concerned if that wasn't happening on sets anyway. But
True.
well,
well,
and just the fact that Hugo Weaving wasn't first cast is just it's always interesting to see things in cinema history that become like Michael J. Fox with Back to the Future, where you're like, oh, that wasn't the first choice, but it ends up being so perfect.
How? Yeah.
And like you're like, wait, Hugo Weaving wasn't first selected for V. That you're like, wow. So
oh man. Also, when they were dancing in the jukebox scene, I was actually like, is that Hugo Weaving? Is that
That's
really
when you got to you?
He's no. I knew it was him all along, but it was like he's really tall.
Hugo
Hugo
Weaving's like
Weaving is 6'2", and Natalie Portman is like 5'3". But that height disparity had me like, I was so
disparity.
I don't know. That was the first word that came to mind. I don't know.
Somebody doesn't think short people have a reason to live.
Or tall. I was like, which
I'm
way?
sorry, I picked a bad word. Your brain fishes for a word and you pull one out and you're like, that was not the right one. Height difference was discrepancy. Thanks, Ollie.
But Natalie Portman, I like how tall you are.
I like how tall you are too. Whatever. I'm just gonna.
The height difference.
Caleb's like, fuck you guys. I'm done with this.
I'm done with this.
Can I do a speech using only D words?
Oh God. But no, it was just so their height difference was so perfect, and I was like, is this real? Is that actually Hugo Weaving? Are they the same height? Like, and then I had to look it up, and then anyway. Totally, that was a complete side tangent, but that actually
Hugo Weaving so into his role, he literally chopped his knees for that moment.
Maybe he did.
Yeah,
you don't know. See, cinema history.
Cinema history. Method.
One of the other, there's so many good favorite things about
Eggy
this
basket.
film. Yeah, that's
Eggy
great.
Basket.
But I really enjoyed the detectives. Finch.
Oh wow,
he did a great job.
Great.
I think Kaylin really nailed it on the head at the beginning with like, there's so many things happening. So like you got like shadow organization government, which is like pretty two-dimensional if you think about it. But you got these detectives who are like following this case of this terrorist, right? And they have no idea. But then in doing so, they are understanding what is happening. So they're like kind of the audience surrogate in terms of like what we should know. And Evie's our audience surrogates of what we should feel. And
Good way of putting it.
It's really, really cool that like there's this little bit of a love story going on. There's like this, 7 detective thing going on. And then there's like this like worldwide event happening, this mystery. And it's, one of my, a scene that I watched, I know for a fact I watched over and over again was when Finch is talking to his deputy and he says, would you, like, if our government was responsible for 100,000 people dying in our own country, would you want to know? And then he's like, it's just a question. I don't even think there's an answer to it. And there's that cool thing that I love, that to me, that is the biggest thing I think films have to offer, is just asking questions that may not have answers, but it just allows you to think. And it's that like, I don't know, ignorance can be bliss. I don't know, maybe. And I think that also ties into like what V was talking about, where he's like, if you don't see that there are any crimes happening in the government, then let November 5th pass. But if you see what I see, if you feel what I feel, then stand beside me on that night. And it's like, stand up for what you believe in, speak your truth. And then if you don't, then like, I guess, cool. Like there's not sense of like, well, I need to fucking waterboard you with all this
my
shit.
God.
So I like message.
I think that helps keep the suspense going, a little bit too, and it really makes it land. It's like, well, I don't know. When is the question going to be answered?
Yeah.
Wait, find out,
And there's even a grander scope of like seeing the bar patrons, the retirement home, and the suburban families like react to the TV.
Yeah.
And like they're growing too. So like there's microcosms of stories being told.
But also
Josh?
kind of to piggyback on the detectives, what I liked about kind of to add to that is I like their ability to ask questions, like, and not to be so entrenched in the government that they belong to. Like, there's a moment that same moment, I like that his kind of like his partner was just like open to the idea, like it wasn't immediately like, no, the government is like all this kind of stuff. Like
It's so good.
like
Yeah,
it was nice that they were this team of being able to explore this idea of like,
because he also
what if
starts
this
seeing
is
the
a lot
pattern,
more fucked up
right?
than we thought.
Yeah.
So
I also love
that's one thing I liked is that they're inspectors, right? UK, and but they're intelligent. Like they're in the role that they're in for a reason, and even the partner starts to catch on pattern, and it helps him out ultimately. But yeah, I think their dynamics was really good, and I really he portrayed that so well, like being the chief inspector and kind of like,
I love that actor. He's just so good.
Yeah, it's this sort of like hopelessness mixed with like curiosity, and you just want to be in that, in his car with him while he's figuring things out, and it's really fascinating to watch.
I love that. Just also on that, I just really loved that you're like the times that they show the chief inspector of like he's drinking whiskey at 6:59 a.m. when the clock hits 7 and the alarm goes off, and it's like you get the whole build up to that point. You get the entire, like, you've seen him have sleepless nights before, so of course he's gonna start today at 7 a.m. with a glass of whiskey.
Well, like
in his hand.
He's seen
pulled
some
open
shit.
his blinds, stared up at the sunrise, and like I've done that before, where I've like gotten up and I've stared at the sunrise, and I'm like, well, it's today. Today's the day for whatever happened to be that day, like our live show, maybe.
Oh yeah, that sounds about it.
Catch the VOD on YouTube.
I will. This is like a $1 piece of lesson that I got from my screenwriting class. And this, I want to say this, and I'm going to make an amendment to this. All you other screenwriters and writers in the world, there are no more powerful 2 words in screenwriting than the words that are said in this film. And it's said in a lot of films. And when you realize it, I want you guys to change, and I want you guys to see it differently. There's no 2 more powerful words than "it's time."
Oh yeah,
Because that means everything. That means it's time to wake up.
Act
It's time
change.
to end things. It's time to kill people. It's time to start a
Time for a new
revolution.
act.
And then my amendment to that is I'm Batman. That is the next most powerful piece
that should
of
have been my
writing.
joke. I'd be like, watch movies. I want you guys to watch all your movies and look for this line. This is going to change your life.
Yes.
I'm Batman.
oh my god.
It's time. and
Let's
I'm
do
Batman.
this. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah,
That's the-
well, pretty good one.
But any other favorite parts before we get into favorite characters?
No, let's get into favorite characters.
We can
The
keep
movie.
talking about it for sure. So who wants to go first? Favorite character?
I'll go first.
I won't go.
Favorite characters.
We'll do.
Let's just do two.
Two.
Just do two. But my first one's a given. V. And my second is Dietrich. I love that he's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. And for her to kind of find out of his hidden life, literally and figuratively.
And how he has to explain it to her.
Yeah.
Breaks your heart.
I just love that he kind of what he represents, and just kind of the freedom within the system that they live in, so to speak, and also being a like late night talk show host, and kind of being that, like, even that sequence that they have that's kind of a Benny Hill-ish.
It's exactly Benny Hill.
No, I know that it is, but yeah, it's not Benny Hill, so it's Benny Hill-ish.
I think what not to tangent away, but I think what really helps with that is the fact that this is not too far away from the beginning of their sort of oppressive time or whatever. What is it, like 10 years or something later? Not too much time has passed.
From when?
Like in this grand scheme of things, just them becoming.
Oh, the
It's a year.
government.
It's a year from
Not
like
not
when the government
not
took over.
the year between November 5th.
How long have they been oppressed?
So in 20 years ago from the start of this film, 20 years ago is when they started rounding up all the homosexuals. And
Okay, so 20 years has passed?
And then
So-
10 years during that time is when V was experimented on. And then
Created.
10
I
years
see.
later is where we pick up.
Okay.
So he says,
So
for 20 years, I have dreamed about this day. That's what.
Yeah. What was really effective was like having all those people that like were from there beforehand. So like you could tell that like he was a talk show host or whatever. Like he had this life and he was really hilarious and he had to like tone it down for this new system or whatever. And having to hear him kind of
Censor.
say that he's been censored, his whole life is censored. So that I think that really, that he's also one of my favorite characters. because of that
Diedrich is basically V within the system that like didn't go outside of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
And
sorry,
V
Josh,
is
I-
the one outside of the system.
That's a good way to think about too, in terms of like how to, again, speak your truth about what you feel is right, but without breaking the law.
Right.
So Ollie, that Diedrich is one of yours. So who's your other?
Diedrich, and then I would say Finch. I was just really, he was
Finch. Which
such
one
a
is
great
Finch again? That's
Finch
the
is the
detective?
the chief inspector.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a cheat sheet in front of me.
Okay, let's go. Caitlin?
This is hard.
We didn't put any restrictions, so it shouldn't be, but
Well,
I skipped
it's
V, but
hard
mine would be
because
V.
there are so many great characters in this.
Mhm.
Like V is I feel like an obvious choice just because he's so bombastic and pompous and
he's the titular character.
He is the titular character and just rife with personal problems. But there's something very charming about him, which makes it hard to not love him.
There's almost something.
let's see-
There's like a childlike quality to him too, which
right.
which I like that side too.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
put on your Hot Topic clothes.
Oh yeah, we're totally
For sure.
in
Hell
like
yeah.
this is basically Dapper Edgelord. Like,
Exactly.
He's a Dapper
Exactly.
Edgelord. That's what V is. But
Perfect.
then second up, probably Evie. Just from like watching a character with so many past traumas and have to like relive that trauma too.
Oh yeah, when
Yeah.
Diedrich gets taken, I was like,
Diedrich gets taken. That's exactly what happens to her
Yeah.
mom.
Oh.
And then V tortures her right after. Like, she's been put through the fucking ringer. And for her to come out and be like, I'm good. I made a fake ID.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard. Okay, bye.
Yeah. She's Natalie Portman's one of my favorite actresses, and she definitely nails it.
Oh,
on this one. This is one of my favorite movies that she's in.
Isn't it crazy when you think that after this film is when she took her hiatus from acting so that she can go back to school
wow.
That's wild.
for acting, and then when she
For
came back, she did Black Swan and then Academy Award.
Yeah, that sounds
And I was
right.
like, what a gangster move!
Yeah.
How
she's
long
like,
was she
I'm done with
gone?
acting. I'm gonna come back to acting.
She's
And
working on her craft. She's an
Yeah.
artist, you know?
which is huge because I remember feeling that way where I was like, oh man, she did Attack of the Clones. She was in Leon the Professional. So I was like, she's a good actor.
Yeah.
And then like when seeing V for Vendetta, I was like, I fucking love her.
Phantom
And
Menace.
then all of a sudden she's like, I'm going to go back to school to get better at acting. And it's like, what do you
What
mean?
do you mean?
And then she comes back, Black Swan. I'm like, you know what?
That's
All right,
what she
damn. That's what you meant. Okay.
But real quick, before I do my favorite character, I did want to say something I really liked was the small racial racism and again with the Stephen Fry part with the talking about the homosexuality thing. Like that was went over my head. Like
Yeah.
as a kid, I was just like,
Oh, yeah.
he lives a secret life.
Secret
They don't mention
basement.
it.
Very
I didn't
cool.
know
It's something
Cool.
she notices.
And then seeing those images, I was like, he likes bondage or something. I don't know. And then
Whatever
I was
it
just
is,
like,
yeah.
and then he says like, I can't have the appetite that I have. I'm like, oh, and
He can't
so
eat
like,
his favorite
more
food. He can only
conventional
eat eggy
fare.
baskets.
So
Yeah.
so watching
If you know what he
watching
means.
it now with 2020, I was just
God.
like, wow, so many things. So like when Finch talks to Creedy and says like, wasn't your dad like an Irishman? He's like, isn't it really sad what St. Mary's did to that? And I was like, and then
And also
like
the parallel that he wakes her up or he welcomes her in the morning the exact
Oh, yeah.
same way that V
same
does.
parallel. But then it's just even Prothero, who's having like that Patty. I was like, oh, that's racial. Hey man, calm down. But then as a kid, I didn't get that. I didn't understand what that meant, and I was like, oh, that's bad. He's a bad guy.
That's a mean word.
But so my favorite characters in this, I'm gonna give myself the self restriction because I like to make my life harder than it has to be.
Yeah.
Always.
I'm not gonna put V or Evie in there, and so my two favorite characters of this film are Finch, number one, and then number two is Adam Sutler.
Wait.
John Hurt's character, the
What?
bad
Oh, okay.
chancellor guy.
Yeah.
Why?
I will say this because on the polar opposite of where V for Vendetta or V is of like talking about like liberty and freedom and justice and waking up and fighting, the oppressive government, there is a very powerful and like I could hear John Hurt talk about like it's like one more day if we get closer to November is one more failure from you, and he's like, it's like we need to remind them that they need us. I was like, oh my god, like it makes me like R.I.P. Like I
But he's
miss
such a coward.
Oh yeah, which is fine. But to me, there is like I would hate it if like he was like just a bad evil dude who's also badass. Like having him being this weak, shrivelly like wizard behind the curtain, like
Yeah.
at least gives a little bit of nuance that like the powerful leader that you see as a giant screen is weak, is human. In the book, it's way different. He's like a nerdy dude who's like very nervous, and he ends up having like a love relationship with a supercomputer. And so like that's the big thing with like all the villain characters
Hell
in this
yeah.
film. They're very two-dimensional. In the book, they actually take a long time. They devote chapters to explain why is Creedy this way, why is Prothero this way, why is like Finch this way, and they're supposed to be the villains, but they're all three-dimensional. They're all like, I have a family, I have kids, like I'm doing this because I want my country to be safe, and so like it adds that like uncomfortableness of like, oh, they're not just evil people; these are
Yeah.
people who think they're doing.
Wait,
the
they
right
have
thing.
dimensions?
In the movie, they're kind of robbed of that. They're all just like Creedy's just evil. Creedy's evil and creepy, so.
Well,
um,
and that kind of ties back into like V's moment with Evie of torturing her for weeks. Like they give him the time to be explained and make you feel more okay with how he does that, and they don't have the time to do that with literally
With
every
everyone else.
villain.
And so that's the thing where it's like we like V, and then what he's done is so evil and terrible, but then we forgive him for it. But then if we did that with all the other characters, we'd probably be where you are, Caitlin, of like
Right.
very a little uncomfortable of like, I don't think there was
like
a real
that
hero.
I like this, but
Well, there's no such thing as heroes. There's no
Right.
hero in this story. In the film, there's a hero, but in the book, it's just two ideologies fighting.
right.
Which one reigns supreme at the end. So, yeah, if any type of triggers of like political and government stuff for this film, steer far away from the book, baby. But if you like that shit, read that book, baby. We got the Comixology link. So
all right.
now we'll go into the qualms. The qualms.
Oh yeah.
Who wants to go first?
I can kick us off. I only really have one qualm. Well, there's a couple. Okay, I'll go with one. They're both really tiny.
Liar. You have
They're
maximum
both super
two.
tiny. And when I mean tiny, it's just anything that takes me away from the movie. So these are suspensions of disbelief. Anyways, first off, we have Natalie Portman's British accent. It's very good for most of it. I would say for 99%. There's a couple choice moments that I feel like
It
doesn't
slipped.
read through. Yeah, like it slips, or it's just like it's mostly it's actually right around her reaction to being tortured when she's kind of like yelling and screaming like more
Can't feel
louder.
anything.
Yeah, like it just slips a little bit, and I'm like, sounds a little strange. But I'm also used to her talking weird in Phantom Menace, so that was the only small thing. I can kick it around. I'll come back around to my other thing.
I was gonna say we just do two, and then go to the next person. They do two, and then go. To the
Yeah, I was gonna
as long as you
say
don't make it a paragraph.
there's when I first watched it, I didn't know the twist. Like I hadn't predicted. I'm very bad at predicting.
Wait,
twists.
what were you guys
I'm
talking
just
about
like,
the twist?
The fact that she's not captured by.
Oh,
England.
that twist. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay.
So that it's Hugo Weaving. Sorry, I didn't specify. But it's there's a couple moments where it's like ambiguous. There's one where it even looks like Creed, but there's definitely a couple that have a very distinct silhouette of Hugo Weaving.
Oh yeah.
When he's standing in the doorway, like especially at the end when
It's
he's
Agent
like trying to
Smith.
appeal to her. It's Agent Smith. That's the problem. It's very Agent Smith, and I was like, almost, where it's like again 99%, but it's just like that one thing. Even though it's not doesn't take you out that much, but it starts to spoil the whole situation. I'm like, I wish that wasn't spoiling it, and something more emotional and more purposed was something that was spoiling it, as opposed to like a continuity error question mark or whatever choice.
I think it's the Scooby Doo thing where it's like you have to leave that breadcrumb in order so you don't make the audience feel like I was duped.
Yeah.
So
Fair
I
enough.
to I think like you, who's a little bit more observant, it's a little bit like, well, I see right through it. I see the fucking from a mile away. It's Hugo Weaving.
I can see his face. I can see his face. But there've been things where I'm like, I literally see his face.
It's actually the same thing when when Finch is talking to Rookwell, whatever, like the dead guy who went missing. It's like, that's Hugo Weaving.
Yeah,
like,
that's
that's
Hugo
literally his face.
Well, admittedly, that was like just right here or whatever. Like it didn't have,
I mean,
anyways.
I had forgotten. What I mean what I was saying is that I had forgotten that was a thing. While it was happening, I was like, oh, that's Hugo Weaving. You can hear it. He has a very distinct voice.
That too.
And there were a couple of things that were said. I don't remember exactly what they were, that you were going, oh, that's V.
It's also the way he.
But I had just
speaks,
forgotten
too.
that it was it was actually part of the concept of it. Like I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he does this fucked up thing.
Yeah.
Josh, you have any other qualms?
I don't. I've tried to think hard about watching this, like when watching this, of like qualms that I have, and I don't have any.
That's fine.
That really come to mind. Like at first I was like, oh, the message is just so fucking slap you in the face, but that's what it's about. Like it's, I mean, there's very tiny continuity things of like when somebody's cut or whether there's blood and, stuff like that. But it doesn't, like you said, Ollie, it doesn't take me away from the movie. I'm still like, slow motion knives.
Knife trails when they probably won't exist or shouldn't exist, but I love them anyways.
They were great.
Yeah, I don't. I don't. I mean, if I can't speak to this, like, because I haven't read the comic. As a peripheral kind of person for me would be like, oh, I don't like that they changed so much of the comic, but I can't say that because I haven't read the comic to appreciate that aspect either. So
yeah, I mean, it's again, if you always knew water was salty, then you wouldn't complain when it wasn't.
Yeah,
you wouldn't complain when it is. You're just like, all right, whatever. Like again, like it's a harsh criticism to be like, well, based on the comic book, it's like just watch the movie and criticize the movie. Like that's their story.
Yeah,
criticize the book for what it is. Like you can say like, I wish they did that, but whatever.
I mean, I think I still think thinking back to Howl's Moving Castle of what the author said about the movie compared to the book is one of my favorite responses of like, it's the movie. They're two different things. Like it's, so it's.
I mean, I'm starting to like distance myself from using the word true to the comic. I hate that phrase now. Like true to the comic. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like
that
the
means
comic's
read
the comic. The
book.
movie's the movie. Like just yeah.
Caitlin?
So agreed.
The only thing that really stood out to me was how nonchalant they were about, well, there were the tunnels that led straight to Parliament, but we sealed all those. It's like, it was a long time ago. And if you're worried about a terrorist that uses bombs and is very like precise in things they do, no one
and
in
also
an entire
wears a Guy
year
Fawkesian mask.
didn't check those tunnels. Like
Guy Fawkes kind of did an underground thing. So
they had an entire year to like just send one person down to those tunnels and be like, they're still sealed, like, right? Like they're still sealed. Like that terrorist guy hasn't like shipped away through.
Maybe they're
those,
waiting for the
right?
DWP guy, like in Rise.
I mean, I'm not trying to like argue whether. I mean, that's a valid point. I guess it depends on how. It's just like forgetting. It's just like doing something so long ago that you forgot that it even existed in the first place.
Well,
you know what I mean?
To me,
they also remark that
it's a logic loop for sure.
Yeah.
It's also remarked that he had to clean it up and lay track. So like they probably wrote it off as like a possibility.
Nobody heard things down there. Like
right,
nobody was like, nobody walked down there and was like,
in such a like police state.
No, yeah.
To me, it's like totally. So it's just a logic loop, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like I can totally see that being a thing, but at the same time, I'm like, this is a police state where literally everything is monitored, and we didn't send one person down to look in the tunnels to make sure that there's not a train coming to Parliament with a bomb.
In my ability to hopefully apologize for the film and create like a patch for it, and this is like really dark. Is like, what if they did send somebody and then V just kept killing them? V just kept killing the people.
Yeah, we don't know.
They're just like, I don't know. We never heard from them.
That would be
dark
even
creature
worse.
down in the
logically.
sewers.
'Cause there's like,
We've
okay,
lost like
we keep
10
sending
scouts.
people down to the tunnels, but then maybe he just explodes them and then puts them in rubble. I don't know. But any other qualms, Caitlin?
It's not a qualm
your
about
last
the movie. It's the thing I was kind of talking about earlier that like made me. It gave me sad feels, because it was like, let's say that you're in a situation like this. Hypothetically speaking,
With
you're in a police
protests.
state with terrifying government things and pandemics and everything else. At the end of this movie, I mean, it's a beautiful moment when everyone comes together in all the Guy Fawkes masks and just marches past all the militia and just stands there and watches the Parliament building get blown up. But it took like Frodo levels of chance to have a superhuman, super like Batman rich person to like Phantom of the Opera someone, like the right person into their lair to take down the country's government. Like, so
I'm going to say something that I've heard online, which is I love. It's like, so the movie can happen.
So
why does he
happen.
do this? Why did nobody check the subway? So the movie can happen.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, it's one of those things that's like, I love this movie for what it is and what it represents. But you almost get a sense of like hopelessness because it's more fantasy than reality.
Theatrical.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like I love this
Think of it this
movie.
way. I used to think that way too, of like, why are these movies these string of lucky coincidences? But it's like, think of it this way. It wouldn't be worth telling. Or the only stories that are worth telling are the ones that are those fascinating strings of coincidence.
I mean,
That's what I'm
that's
saying.
not
The
my
story wouldn't be worth
issue.
telling if it didn't
Ollie-
happen this way.
Ollie, you just stumbled upon like the crux of every movie. Is that nothing fucking happens if everything's just logic based.
Yeah.
Like
No,
everything's
that's
really
not my issue
I'm
at all.
not,
I know,
I'm not
yeah,
saying
yeah.
that, but I'm just saying like Ollie, we've talked about we've had this show for a while, and you say like it feels contrived or like sometimes there's a logic loop and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes like those aren't those things that happen because if those weren't, then the movie wouldn't fucking happen. Just like what Ollie's saying.
Yeah.
But to Caitlin's
your point, it's not doesn't excuse why.
yeah, no. But
It's
to
just sort of
Caitlin's
like
point, like it's not like a welcome to the core, baby. But it's like I feel this way a lot for a lot of films. Like love is never the way it's interpreted in films. Like breakups are never the way interpreted. Like everything in film is just like that is what is ideal. And then there is a little bit of like this false reality that people start building in their brains of like in the movies it would be like this. It's like that's
like
not
this.
how it works,
It's like,
baby.
no.
Like who knows in a real situation of V for Vendetta there would have been another religious uprising. Like that just
Right.
sidelines his plan.
I was like to add to like
Competing
your
side.
point, Caitlin, is it's like, wait, so taking down one person and then kind of his next in line, that's all it takes to crumble this seemingly
Yes, it's not like a Hydra situation where you cut one head.
it's like
three
that's
head
all that
pop
it
up.
takes to take down this
Well,
so overpowering government.
and it's not that it's a like state of disbelief or that it like ruined the movie for me in any way, shape, or form. It's more of like
If only it was that simple.
It's an internal sense of like sadness or almost a feeling of hopelessness that like if it were so simple, we would almost do it every other year.
It's almost as if like I'm glad they were successful, but you were successful because of these very specific things that happened.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not to say that
yeah.
there can't be strings of coincidences that have led to victories in wars in the past and whatnot. But it just, there were so many things that kind of hit home in this movie in particular that made this movie feel a little more bittersweet than it already
Definitely
is.
felt that.
Yeah.
One thing when I was a little kid, I've talked about this before. I was like a little bitch, and I cry about every horror movie I saw. And my mom would always just
don't
be like,
insult me like that. I don't want to be called
Yeah.
out.
Don't talk about
this
me. Don't make this about you.
staunchly. It's too late. I already did.
So
it.
my mom would always just say like, "It's just a movie. It's just a movie. It's just a movie." And so like that has always been kind of this weird backbone for me. That like, in the horror movie, like there is just some actor in a wet gown with like creepy makeup on, and there's some
And
like
it's
ugly
terrifying,
director
and they're going to
behind
crawl
a,
out of my
a camera.
mirror, and they're going to
you know?
stab me in the face with a toothpick.
But that's like to that point of this film where it's like, hopefully anyone's listening is not taking V for Vendetta as like the Bible. You know, like
right. This is not how you throw down a fascist police state government.
So,
quick question: in your worst nightmare, is this person checking you for doneness like a cake, toothpick?
I picked the wrong weapon choice, but I was using a toothpick yesterday. So
you're done. That's his catchphrase. You're done.
It came out clean. You're done.
For me, qualms I had for the film are it's to me when you know about the differences, it starts illuminating things. And the villains
The difference
are very
between the source and the theatrical?
yeah.
Okay.
It's actually the same issue I have with Winter Soldier. Now that I think about it, right? Like the hard thing that a lot of people talk about the Marvel movie Winter Soldier. A lot of people are like, it's the best movie. It's a spy thriller. It's like, no, it's not. Because everyone's like, it's Captain America going against the government. No, it's not. It's about Captain America having to fight Hydra yet again. There's nothing difficult about it. There's nothing difficult about this film. Like the oppressive government's there, and then people are just pushed into inaction and complacency. And one person is like, I think I don't have any weapons strong enough, but I have an idea that's strong enough. And so it's like, yeah, fucking kill Creedy. There's nothing hard about doing that. Kill Prothero. He's an asshole. There's nothing wrong with that. The enjoyment of the film comes into like the puzzle piece coming together and seeing those dominoes fall down. You're like, oh, okay, this is what's happening, why it's happening.
When the dominoes were actually falling down.
Yeah, you see V on this course of action, but in terms of like any type of existential conversation, that's why like for me, I don't really find this film like too difficult to watch because it's like beat the bad guy. Okay, you know, like they're not even portrayed as humans. Like Sutler is literally 2-dimensional because you see him on a giant Big Brother screen. So who gives a shit if he dies?
That's true.
Like overthrowing government that killed its own people. Who gives a shit? Like it's a scary thought. Like what if that happened? Like yeah, of course. And then fucking kill the people who are accountable for it. Like there's nothing hard about accountability at this point to me. There are things where it's like the world that you live in, and then maybe that small crack in the mirror of like, maybe it's not what you think it is. Like, oh shit. Like, and that's why I think where Evie's traumatic experience comes from. It's like, again, she was not willing to do anything or be part of any movement. She was just living her life. And in the book, she's a streetwalker, aka an escort, aka, you know, a lady of the night. So in here, in the film, she's like a well-read girl who works at a fucking TV station as an assistant.
I feel like the opening setup is like a nod to that.
Yeah, because you're wondering why is she going to Dietrich's house?
It's like, well, that's probably why she was going to go there.
And then then Dietrich says like, I only do that to put up appearances because I should have. And I was like, oh my god, that's so fucking good. There's nothing too difficult about this film, and that's one thing. Like, and I don't think there should be for the enjoyment that I got from it. Like, I can't go back and say like, man, if they had the nuance of the comic book or they had the duality, then it would be way better. It's like, I don't know, it just might be more complicated, and you might just be left at home just being like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to believe in anymore. like religion's bad on this side, conservatism's bad on this side, but also like freedom is bad because it's like anarchy. Like who knows? But that to me is like a little bit of like what Alan Moore wants. But so this film has the hero, it has the tyrannical dragon, you know. So you can walk away.
I think they even honor that a little bit at the end. Like one of his last things that he says is like, this is not his last thing, but before he leaves to go fight them is like, this is for your generation to decide. Like we made the mess. Yeah. You know, that's, you know, we're gonna blow up our mess. You guys have a new life or new, you know, start something new.
Mm-hmm. Little Kingdom Come be, baby. That's probably my one big qualm. And other than that, I think you guys all mentioned small things, but I don't really give a shit about those. That's it for me. Oh, it's not saying those are your guys.
I know. Just the phrasing is funny.
So we're gonna go on to the rating finally, baby. So the first person is up is Ali. What's your score, baby?
I am a hot 4.9.
4.9, baby.
Yeah. This is one of those for me, hits every chord. And nothing to dislike really.
Bam. Mine is a solid 4.5.
Ooh.
Next up is Caitlin.
4.8.
4.8 for Caitlin. This spells trouble for Tyler.
Yeah, it does. I think the community was right.
4.39.
4.39.
Oh
All right. I'm
my
Wow.
god!
Okay, and the thing is, like, I really enjoy this film. Man,
It's
that's
just
crazy.
skills.
It's a
We have skills.
4.5.
It's a 4.5,
Yeah.
but geez, I mean,
It's
I
because
guess in my,
it's because your scale is so much harder on a lot of different things. Like for me, it's like, did I enjoy the movie? Wee it's good. A high score.
4.5.
But like, yeah. Tom is like, oh well, there is this to consider, and also the
I
camera
almost
He
and
has
then
education
a
in the realm of
like-
film review and film making.
Right.
So
Right.
I was going to
almost-
say,
he has
it's
reference
comforting
points.
to know.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you've seen probably a lot more better movies than me. So your scale is like skewed. Where mine's like
I-
stuck
And the
at
rest of us
bottom.
are like, yay!
I almost put this
Knife
at a 4, a
trails.
straight 4.
Ah!
And I was like, it's really
No,
good.
it's
It's a really
fun.
wonderful film. But it wasn't like, oh my god. But like again, there's like a little bit of an enjoyment to like film richness that I'm like, this film isn't super film richness, but like it's just really, really enjoyable. But there's the thing that I really love about this film was like, it's in 2005, and I think we all saw this. It's like what the 90s evolved into, but then somehow like in the aughts, like the 2010s and all that stuff, it just changed.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I was to
Oh,
me,
yeah.
I really like this realm of film where like it touches on hard subjects, but it still has like the 90s like we're gonna
Dapper
win,
edgelord.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Dapper.
but dang baby, all right, I'm the grump for the week. So maybe the
Sounds like
nomination.
Rob!
No, the nomination was still pretty wrong just because they had Ollie and Josh and me. But the vote for me,
They were right.
was,
They voted for you, you dingle.
yeah, I know, but it won only one person. Everyone else had one other vote. So the vote for me was for Mitchell G.
Mitchell
You,
G.
you,
Shout out.
you are the one
He
who
knew.
wins. You are the guest that grumper gator guesser.
You are the one that votes.
grass-fed guesser.
You never decide how to say that.
No,
When you
do
say
we have a
gator,
theme song
I've
for
always
guess that
wondered-
We
grump?
never
No.
have a theme
When you
song.
say the word gator, does it mean like a gate to stop or
Like
a
a
gator?
gator.
Okay. That's what I was
Like
thinking.
a
You're a
literal,
gator.
like,
like
see you later, alligator.
Like you have not had to evolve from prehistoric times because you guessed that grump gator grass.
So you're like
fed
gating
gator.
away grumps or something.
Would you
I
look at
want
that? It's the
gluten-free.
end of the episode.
Guess that grump gangster.
Well,
Everybody,
hopefully-
everybody at home, thank you so much for listening or watching. If you are on YouTube, thank you so much. Yeah, do
Oh, yeah, the
consider
reason
joining
to
that
remember
Nerd On
the
Nation
the
to
fifth.
be a part of the Grumper Gator gluten-free guesser.
Wow, gluten free.
Um,
Nice.
Gluten-free now. Hey, Caitlin, you can have it now.
I can have it.
Free.
Tell us your thoughts. Reach out to us on social media what you thought about V for Vendetta. If you are new to Nerd On, welcome. Bienvenue. Glad to have you. Do check out our website, nerdon.tv. It has all the information of all of the things that we do because we do a lot. We have multiple episodes.
He said a lot.
Can I interject?
Do it.
I am so sorry.
What?
I messed up who guessed me on the guess that
Are you
Grumper
kidding
guessed.
Wow.
No, I'm not.
This is awkward.
I'm just Mitchell. You guessed for Josh, and you're kind of close. But Lucian guessed me.
Oh my
So you are the guess that grumper
God.
guesser.
Lucian,
Sorry, the Excel sheet was
job.
weird and it messed
And
me
your
up.
Sorry,
champion
Tom
belt.
failed you today.
I'm sorry.
But-
I'm so sorry. I failed you.
failed you.
I failed you.
Trust me.
I failed you.
I failed you. All right, sorry.
He's
You
probably
were- you were the-
so
you were the
mad
king.
during this part. He's like, what? What? And then, that's what it was.
There you go.
So
you were
picking up where I
vindicated.
left off, press play.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Do stop by, rate and review us wherever you listen, that kind of stuff. It has multiple things. It allows us to keep being better because we look at reviews and feedback. But it also feels good because once we get those, even YouTube comments, we screenshot them and share them within the group, and it's good stuff.
You know that moment
Oh,
when
boy.
you've like pulled cookies out of the oven and they've been sitting
they're
there for just
gluten-free,
like a
apparently.
minute and they're gluten free if you need them to be, and then like you've waited like maybe 3 minutes and they've set up just enough where you can like get one off, but it's still good on the inside and you take a bite. That's what getting a review is like. I think
Wow.
that's the experience.
Yeah.
Where you're like
all right.
peak good
Yeah.
feels. That's what getting a
joy.
review is
Peak
like.
good
So
feels.
if you leave one, that's how we're gonna feel when we read it. Just so
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You are our warm cookie.
You are a warm cookie, baby.
Oh. Okay.
You heard it here.
I'm stopping it here.
It's gonna
Thank you
get
so much for
it's gonna
listening.
Keep going.
You know the drill. As always,
Nerd on.
Nerd on.
broadcast.